This is my job as the introducer-in-chief. And this welcomes all of you to another sold-out Engage event. I want to welcome our members, our supporters, our donors, and also new visitors who are making their way to the Bush Center for the first time. Also, a special welcome to our Team 43 members and their families and friends, the Warrior Open volunteers also who gathered and helped us today, and all those in the overflow room. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Also, we're including our live stream at bushcenter.org and Facebook Live. So for future events, if you're unable to get space, we do live stream what we do here. This event tonight is another example of the great programming that we're able to bring to our community. As part of our engagement agenda, as we develop leaders, advance policy, and take action while we're engaging the world, these topics are important, and they're important and unique to a presidential center. This program is a perfect example of our goal to integrate the Institute programming on supporting our veterans, our public programming, which you're here tonight, and the museum, which also includes President Bush's Portraits of Courage exhibit, where all the features of the House are brought together to send the messages about serving those who have served our country. I'd like to acknowledge tonight Mrs. Bush. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for your participation today in our caregiver seminar, which we did in conjunction with the golf tournament, where we focused on the issues around the support mechanisms for our veterans and really the unsung heroes in that equation. Thank you very much, Mrs. Bush, for your leadership there. Also with us tonight is a special guest, General Peter Pace, and his wife Lynn are with us. General Pace served as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff under President Bush. He was recognized as the Presidential Medal of Freedom winner in 2008, and of course, he wrote the foreword to the book Portraits of Courage. We thank him for your work on our military service initiative. He sits on our advisory council and provides us great strategic advice, and we welcome them tonight, and thank you for all of your years of service to this country. I'd also like to say a very, very heartfelt thank you to all the generous supporters. As I said, this program brings together all the elements of the House, so it's too voluminous to name, but we have them on the screens and we have them on the signage. Our supporters who supported the Portraits of Courage art exhibit, our Warrior Open sponsors, our Military Service Initiative sponsors, our Engage event sponsors, and the overall Bush Center supporters. We couldn't put on programming like this without you. We couldn't be the sustainable organization we are without you. So thank you very, very much for your incredible contributions, because without that, we couldn't succeed. As I reflect on the day for a moment, the golf outing started last night with a very special announcement. And that is that from this point forward, the Warrior Open has joined forces with the AT&T Byron Nelson. And we will, beginning next year, we will play the golf tournament on the Monday and Tuesday following the conclusion of the AT&T Byron Nelson event. That will allow us to expand our reach. We'll have facilities that are full, that stay up from the golf tournament, but it will really allow us to jointly send the message, in addition to the fine beneficiary of the AT&T Byron Nelson, that the veterans organizations with which we serve are very, very worthy and find a place on a much higher national stage. So that's a very exciting event. In addition, it was very heartwarming for me to watch President and Mrs. Bush interact with the Warriors today. And they are our inspiration to our programming. And when I hear President Bush say that he's going to dedicate the rest of his life to serving those who have served, and then to see it in action, it's unbelievably heartwarming, and it's unbelievably inspirational to the work we're doing. And that started today, and now this event culminates that effort. We've got a great, fun evening tonight. The Bush Institute's Military Service Initiative, led by Miguel Howe, who you'll hear from later this evening, and also Colonel Matt Amadon and Jeff Cleveland, are fantastic leaders in our efforts to bring assistance in both the employment transition to civilian life, as well as overcoming the invisible wounds of war that are so prevalent today. The key is to help our veterans seek and to receive effective treatment, and we concentrate on strategies to eliminate barriers to care, including removing the stigmas associated with these wounds. It's an honor for me to introduce our first panel this evening for a great conversation. We're honored to welcome Sergeant First Class Rod Rodriguez, U.S. Army retired, one of the warriors featured in the art exhibit, and a member of our Military Service Initiative Advisory Council. Rod served 21 years in the Army, 15 of which were as a Special Forces Green Beret. Throughout his career, Rod suffered more than a dozen concussions, including 3 within a 5-week period in 2006 deployed in Afghanistan. Rod was diagnosed with multiple TBIs and severe post-traumatic stress, which resulted in his medical retirement from the Army and began a journey to recovery that is both incredible and inspirational. We're also pleased to have Melissa Walker join us. Regarded as one of the foremost authorities on the power of art therapy, Melissa runs the Healing Arts Program at the National Intrepid Center of Excellence at the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in Bethesda. There, she helps members of the military who have suffered traumatic brain injury and psychological problems express themselves through art. And then finally, leading the conversation is Dr. Jim Kelly. Dr. Kelly is a neurologist and one of America's top experts on treating concussions. He is the executive director of the brand new Marcus Institute for Brain Health at the University of Colorado, which is part of our Warrior Wellness Alliance here at the Bush Center. He founded and was director of the National Intrepid Center of Excellence in Bethesda, and we're fortunate to have Dr. Kelly as a senior fellow here at the Bush Institute, where he helps guide the wellness work of our Military Service Initiative. Please join me in welcoming Rod Rodriguez, Melissa Walker, and Dr. Jim Kelly.
Thank you, Ken. Good evening, everyone. I am especially honored and privileged this evening to have Michael Rodriguez and Melissa Walker here. I'll guide the conversation a little bit. They don't need a whole lot of guidance, as it turns out, and they know perfectly well how to express their experiences in the area of healing arts and how it is that in invisible wounds in particular, we find that the nonverbal expression of an artistic display can actually help us as clinicians better understand what otherwise would be invisible. It truly is an opportunity to make visible that which is invisible. So what I'd like to do is to start out, Rod, if I may, have you tell us a little bit about how it is that you came to the National Intrepid Center of Excellence.
Well, thank you. First, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to come out to the Engage event, and of course, President and Mrs. Bush and everybody here, and Dr. Kelly. I'm honored to sit here between two of the people that actually, I'm going to say it, and I want to start off with it. I haven't been able to tell you both at the same time, but two of the people that helped save my life. So I ended up coming to the National Intrepid Center of Excellence. I was fortunate every time I received a TBI or got blown up or concussion, I was able to hide it. I kept all my pieces, and I did a lot of self-treatment to hide it. So then pretty soon it got to be where I couldn't hide it anymore. My speech was really bad. I was running into things. I couldn't hide the double vision. So then I ended up, it was my command. They're like, hey, what's going on? And then, I had a big a moment where I had to come out. I was still facing a lot of the stigmas of just basically being injured.
That story is just so typical. We've heard that time after time, where staying in the fight, staying with your teammates, staying mission-focused was absolutely the top priority for you, and you suffered as a result.
Well, I think suffering is a choice. I faced my obstacles. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, it's just within the military, not just the military. It's always mission first, those to your left and right, family, and then time for you. And anyone who's worn the uniform knows there's hardly any time for your family, much less yourself.
So what I'd like to do, Melissa, is first show the video so that we can spin off from that into further conversation. If we can go to the first video of Rod depicting how it is that this came to be for him.
Growing up, I say it all the time, my first heroes were my father, who's a Vietnam veteran, my grandfather, World War II veteran, and I wanted to serve my country. I wanted to carry on that tradition of service within my family. I joke around, I call it the family business. My wife has over 20 years in service and continues to serve to this day. My oldest son is in the 82nd Airborne Division. Our passion is to serve this country, and that's how my family serves this country, is in the service. My last deployment was exposed to, and it was an IED and went off in close proximity. Lost vision in my left eye. I didn't lose my eye, I just lost vision. And I was a senior medic at the time, and I knew I was hurt, but I wasn't about to say anything. I wanted to stay with, my teammates, so I kept it hidden.
When the symptoms caught up to him, Rod was diagnosed with severe PTS and TBI, which resulted in his medical retirement from the Army.
For me, it was a relief because, now I knew what I was fighting, and I could take ownership of it. Through art, there's a way to express yourself without words, because sometimes words fall short. So I got into blacksmithing as my form of expression, and I found within, heating a piece of metal and banging on it, while I'm doing that, I'm in that moment, and I'm able to not only focus on what I'm making, but it allows me to process and go through a lot of the things that I do carry around. It's become what I do. It's my healing. The very first time I met President Bush was probably the only time I think I've ever been like awestruck or starstruck. Aside from the fact that, he was my commander-in-chief, I deployed to combat under him, and so did a lot of my brothers and sisters. We knew he loved us. We knew he cared. There's a lot of us that walk around with injuries you can't see. And, America is, they just don't know about it, so he's really highlighted it.
Rod is very talented. Prince Harry and I are proud owners of beautiful daggers that Rod forged for us. But I am most proud of the friendship Rod and I have forged, and of his courageous contributions to our country and to the world.
Beautiful. We'll circle back to how it is that art now works in your life and what an important piece that is. But is there anything else about how it is that art mattered to you beforehand that played a role in this? I'm not sure, having been involved off and on in your life at various times. I don't know if you were involved in art beforehand, before all of this.
I have a different view on art. I think everybody is an artist. My art just happened to be through my service and what I did. I like to think I'm a very passionate person, so as opposed to being a SF Green Beret, my artistic push per se just went into a different form of expression.
Beautiful. Melissa, talk about how it is that you met Rod and the role that art therapy played. And again, I would emphasize the therapy piece of this because that's what Melissa brought.
I'll talk a little bit to that too, but I have to say, Rod, it's such an honor to be on the stage with you, Dr. Kelly. Always a pleasure to see you. And I can't tell you how excited I am to see that you've carried on with your art making and assimilated that into your life in such a beautiful way. So thank you so much. So we use art therapy at the National Intrepid Center of Excellence as a standard of care. It is a form of psychotherapy. Art therapists are master's trained clinicians, and we work with the service members to use the art making as a form of communication, both with them and then teaching them to use the art to communicate with their the other clinicians as well as their families, perhaps their so it's an amazing process. In a moment, we'll see what Rod did and kind of what it meant to him. But they are able to, Dr. Kelly alluded to it earlier, many of them have a very difficult time verbalizing what has occurred. It's due to an actual shutdown in the Broca's, or the speech language area of the brain. And the art making accesses the sensory areas of the brain and allows them to work through and then begin to communicate when they describe what the art means to them. And we'll see that in a moment. And so we did get to engage in mask making and individual art therapy. The mask making was in a group art therapy session. And then individual art therapy, we're able to work with them on their specific treatment goals. And so I want to get back into Rod's story and artwork here. But we have had over 1,400 masks created since the beginning of NICO, since 2010. And we've begun to research some of the themes that have come up. And in a moment, we'll be able to tie in some of the research outcomes we've seen into what you'll see in Rod's work in a moment. Two things that I want to bring up regarding the themes and correlations with PTS and post-traumatic stress and generalized anxiety is in the service members who are able to use art making to express themselves metaphorically or symbolically, there is a decrease in generalized anxiety. And also in those who are able to, or who chose to symbolize a strong sense of team or community, either within their military unit or within their family, there was a lower incidence of post-traumatic stress. So community is extremely important as these service members move forward in their lives. And from what I've seen, Team 43 is doing exactly that. And I think that the art community also can help to create this sense of team and camaraderie and community that they need when they return home. So let's move on to the mask.
Would it help to show the mask that you created? Should we have an opportunity? Oh, there it is already, just like that. So tell us about that.
Okay, so this mask is a representation of myself, and that was the guidance. That was pretty much the only guidance you were given. Hey, speak through the mask, from what I remember. And so I realized that, so I had a peaceful background, which is symbolized in the blue, and the more of a focused, let's call it a war background per se, which is the red. And I'm a devout Catholic, so I put crosses on there. So the red, what got me through the red were the 5 crosses, which is, or excuse me, the 4 crosses, which are my family members. You know, my purpose, direction, motivation, my foundation of life, my faith is based off my family. So then taking me back to the peaceful side, which is indicative of being home, unfortunately, you know, I felt like I didn't belong there. So the roles kind of somewhat reversed, and me bringing the war home, unfortunately, you know, my family were the ones who were subject to that. So that's my message to myself, really, within that mask.
So one of the things we've learned as clinicians is that this opened a door for that kind of description that we otherwise would not have access to. It's a nonverbal expression, but it's then put to words. And so the individual can take the mask to the other clinicians in the team, the psychologists and psychiatrists and social workers and neurologists and others, to explain what that means and how it is that that informs the rest of what the team needs to work on for that individual. Did that help in some way for you, or how did that play out?
It showed me things that it put me down, I guess, a certain thought process I had never really thought about. So, like, you know, art is a beautiful form of expression. I think we've said it several times already, you know, and it takes on a life of its own. And I think I said it in the video, it expresses itself where words fall short, because, you know, I think me and Melissa were talking about earlier. Art was around before the written word. Art was the very first visual, tangible form of human expression. I mean, there's cave paintings, that's it. So this actually provided me an avenue to not only express myself, but explore myself.
And there's a certain vulnerability that has to happen in order to do this, as you might imagine. At first, I thought when we hired Melissa, these guys that are tough as nails coming back from war, they're not going to be doing this stuff. But the beauty of it is, with her encouragement and setting up the atmosphere in which that safe expression can occur, this has become one of the most potent therapeutic interventions we have. Not just there, but it has taken a ripple effect, created a ripple effect across traumatic brain injury systems and other psychological health systems. The National Endowment for the Arts has been a huge supporter of this and is helping hire additional therapists to work with active duty service members and veterans. And it's absolutely beautiful, and I think that Melissa's really the main reason that that's happening, as far as I can tell. I think it's great.
Thank you for hiring me so many years ago.
So, but there's something about this mask that is at the beginning. It's done in the first days of a pretty intensive month-long treatment program. And then later, there's a second art opportunity that I want Melissa to explain, and maybe we can see that as well.
Yeah, so in their 4th week of care, they engage in what we call montage painting, and they're able to take different elements of art and art media and collage it together to express different parts of themselves or perhaps a theme about their lives in entirety. And we do see in that 4th week, there's this better understanding of the self that has occurred as they've gone through this treatment program. You guys deep dive while you're there, right? And you really get to know yourselves. And so I think you'll see that in a moment with Rod's montage painting as well.
So if we could call up the next art piece, that is there we go. And how about if you describe that for us?
Okay, so this one's called The Great Journey. It's pretty much just life. So I guess, fiery backgrounds were me. I'm a very passionate individual, so that kind of depicts everything I do. I put my heart and soul into everything I've ever done in my life. So that's the background right there. The skull, the old skull that's buried down there, is indicative of the multiple TBIs I had. It wasn't just one event, it was multiple, and that's why I chose an aged skull. And it's semi-buried, meaning that I'm barely acknowledging it and bringing it out to the surface. The little devil, demon guys up there is the PTS, the shadows, the whatever we want to call it. Everyone has their own word for it. So that's what those two things depict. The little soldado right there, the little army guy on the bottom depicts me. And I'm facing him, and I'm taking ownership of him. It's, he's got his arm in the air. It's like, follow me. So they're mine. The first step in that is immersion. In order to face what you're fighting, you have to immerse yourself in it. You have to face it. You can't fight an enemy you don't clearly identify. I mean, I used to box, and I would never get into a boxing ring with a blindfold, so why would I do that when I'm trying to face some things that are, affecting my everyday life? So that's the immersion. Then that leads into the fighting. I'm a fighter. I believe you have to fight for everything in your life. Nothing is free. Survive. You have to have faith. You have to understand you're going to get through it. There's going to be hard times. There's going to be good times. But you have to survive. And survival is something that we're born with. It's a human instinct. It's what's allowed us to be on this planet for so long. And then relief is finally getting to that point where not the top. If you notice, this hill is not a peak because there's no peak. I've understood that I will be facing and carrying around some of the things, whether they're physical, some of the brain injury stuff I have, or whether there's some of the PTS stuff. They're going to be with me the rest of my life. But my relief is accepting it, owning it again, and having peace with it, because peace really is acceptance of your circumstances. I said it earlier, like Dr. Kelly, you suffered. I don't believe I suffered. Suffering is a choice. Do we deal with pain? I think everybody who's either watching on Facebook or sitting down somewhere deals with some type of pain. But the relief that I depict here is just acceptance and facing it and again, taking ownership of it.
So much power in that. Before I forget, you'll notice as you exit into the foyer, these are on display in a case for you to spend a little more time looking at if you like. Let's go back now to where this art informed the rest of what has happened for you and how it is you've gotten into what you're doing now and how it is that I know Melissa's intrigued by all of what it is you're doing now.
Yeah, so, like Dr. Kelly mentioned, he's like, man, I don't know how an art therapy is really going to help these guys. So, I was one of those individuals that were like, hey, we're going to do art therapy, and I'm like, what? What do you mean? I'm a war fighter. I'm not going to paint. What are you talking about? I don't do that, She's like, but like I've said a couple times, all right, I'm going to pour my heart and passion into it. So I did, and so I did that. So following my stay at NICO, I was sent to a different hospital for 2 weeks of inpatient care to take care of my PTS and chemical dependency. So I went there. And during one of the visits, my company sergeant major had come out to visit, and he had got into knife making and blacksmithing. And he said, hey, when you get out, there's a guy coming to give a class. Why don't you come on out? I'm like, well, all right, I'll give it a try. I looked at it more as an occupational therapy thing. I'm a physical guy, so I like to say physical. I'll swing a hammer, and maybe it'll help me deal with, some of the depth perception issues I have. All right, I'll do it. And, I like sharp, pointy things too. So I was like, all right, it's a win-win, right? So I got out, and this guy came out, he gave the blacksmithing class, and I found that form of expression again that Melissa had blessed me with, you know, the ability to do it, because you get a material and, you know, and heat, and then, you know, I want to make something, but, you know, I think the material wants to become something, and we kind of meet in the middle. Sometimes it's happier and I'm not. But that's how I kind of got into it, to making it, because it's a physical thing, and it allows me to process and go through a lot of the things. And everything I've ever made, I've either given them away as gifts or donated them for auction. I've never sold anything I've ever made, because I don't want to. It's just, I don't want to. I'm concerned that if I was to try to do that, it would take away from the true nature of really why I do it.
And as I recall, some are on display right here in another part of this building.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Melissa, take off on there. Where is he headed with that?
I wanted to hear a little more about when you're in the moment of the process of making. You know, we hear a lot from service members that they lose sense of time, and they forget about pain. And so for you, is this more of, I know with the art therapy, you know, you're obviously, like I said, using the art making to express yourself metaphorically. When you're metal forging, are you taking your mind off of things, or do you think while you're doing it? Or what kind, how does it, how is it therapeutic for you?
So as you guys saw in the video, that stuff's really red hot, and if you're not paying attention to what you're doing, it's kind of a hazardous thing. So it requires intense focus. So it does, you're right, it allows me to just be in the moment.
Right.
And I'm solely focused on that, and you're right, you'll lose time. You know, as a matter of fact, the dagger that, you know, the boss has upstairs, it took me like 80 hours to make that. Wow. And I lose, not straight, no, I did not work for, you know, 5.5 days. It requires that focus, and it allows me to, I don't want to call it an escape, because like I said, I own everything that I have, but it focuses you.
And these service members come to us saying that they have a very difficult time focusing. So imagine that they can then sit there and work on things like the masks and what you just described for hours at a time. It's very impressive. And
Beautiful.
Yeah, kudos to you for keeping it up. I'm really proud of you.
Well, thank you both for your contributions, Melissa, to this whole field and to the wellness of our warriors. And Rod, for all of what it is you've been doing and your contributions to Team 43. I look forward to many more years working closely with you.
Yes.
Thank you. To mention the Warrior Wellness Alliance and some of the website information that has had absolute geniuses behind it here at the Bush Institute and the Military Service Initiative. And I would encourage any veteran and individuals inclined to help, that's why you're here, I would think, to look at that website for information and to connections that are being built throughout the United States. Thank you all.
Now we're going to move to some post-presidential art therapy to continue the conversation. I'll remind everybody that the exhibit will remain open after this session as well. Leading our next panel and moderating will be Kevin Sullivan, who was Assistant to the President for Communications in the White House and now a Senior Advisor for External Affairs here at the Bush Center. And he will be joined by Staff Sergeant Johnny Yellick, U.S. Air Force retired. He comes from a dual veteran family and was raised in San Antonio. He enlisted in the U.S. Air Force after receiving his degree. Johnny was a certified air traffic controller, trained static line and free fall jumper, as well as a U.S. Army qualified combat scuba diver. On July 6, 2011 in Afghanistan, an improvised explosive device struck his vehicle, seriously injuring both of his legs. He received the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, and Combat Action Medal for his actions that day. He spent the next 3 years in rehab and endured 30 limb salvage surgeries to date. Golf has played a very big part in his recovery. He also encourages other veterans through public speaking and various nonprofit work. Last year, he began a career in the insurance industry and recently has been accepted into the Executive MBA program at SMU. Joining him will be Major Chris Turner, who's on active duty at the U.S. Army, serving as an infantry battalion executive officer at Fort Drum, New York. Chris joined the Army in 2005 through Clemson University's ROTC program. He has served in many positions, from rifle platoon leader and executive officer in Iraq to a company commander in Afghanistan. On October 5th, 2013, Chris was wounded when an Afghan security guard fired on him and other soldiers. For the remainder of his deployment, Chris struggled more with the invisible wounds of war than the physical ones. His primary support structure consisted of his wife, Katrina, and their children. Chris has researched and written extensively about PTS and now speaks openly about the day he was wounded and the struggle he continues to face. Joining them is the 43rd President of the United States. Please join me in welcoming them all.
Good evening, everyone. What an honor and a privilege to get to do this. So thanks, Ken. Thanks, guys. Looking forward to a fun one. Hope you've all had a chance by now to see the Portraits of Courage exhibit. If you haven't before the show tonight, you can afterwards.
Get them to buy the book, Sully.
Okay. Amazon.com right now on your phones. It's been a runaway hit, the exhibit and the book. It's so gratifying to see so many people go through the exhibit with their families and spend time to listen to the stories and download the app and hear those stories.
Let me interrupt. Sorry to interrupt you again, but I'm not really sorry. But anyway.
Won't be the last time.
So the people who published the book are here, believe it or not, from Crown. So if you ever write a book, go to Crown. I want to thank you all for coming. I appreciate you being here. Okay, now.
Okay. So we're going to hear Johnny and Chris's stories here in just a few minutes, but let's start with a couple of fun facts from the book published by Crown, Portraits of Courage, Amazon.com. Based on research from our friends at Crown, Portraits of Courage is the first book in history, first art book in history to be #1 on both Amazon and the New York Times bestseller list.
Yeah.
Okay?
You know what, Sully? I'm not so sure that's so great because Amazon didn't exist when Van Gogh painted.
Well,
You got nothing.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
The
Got it.
it's also, you know, it's rare that an art book would have an audio version, right? But the audio version has also done very well, which says a lot about the writing, the stories, and of course the person who reads them. And the impact of Portraits of Courage, the book, has been incredible. In fact, I don't even think you know this one, Mr. President, this little story. On the day in February when President Bush appeared on the Today Show with a couple of the warriors in the book, there was an art teacher, an elementary school art teacher in Farmingdale, New York, who was so inspired that she got to school and assigned her classes a Portraits of Courage assignment, a local version out there on Long Island. Next thing you know, they had 22 veterans go through, and here is a picture of one of those veterans with one of the students doing the Portraits of Courage project with the artist inspiration, President George W. Bush.
Yeah, that's good.
So pretty cool. Woodward Parkway Elementary School in Farmingdale, New York.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
But here's the headline. And again, based on research from our friends at Crown, Portraits of Courage is the best-selling art book in history.
Is that right? Yeah.
And that includes Van Gogh, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Vincent, yeah.
And of course, all the proceeds donated to the Bush Center to continue and support the work that helps veterans. So, Mr. President, you spent, well, first of all, Johnny, why do you think it did so well, Portraits of Courage?
Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here, and thank you, everybody that's in the audience, and thank you, Mr. President, for choosing myself and Chris to join you on stage with you today. It's an incredible event. So I get asked often why and who was chosen to be in the book, and my immediate response was that he obviously chose the best-looking wounded warriors out there.
And I'm in there twice, so it's 2 for 1.
That's clear.
Heck of a compliment.
Yeah.
So, Mr. President, you spent a year about painting.
Yeah, I did.
98 portraits, counting the mural, right? 66 vets. Why did you do it? What was your goal?
Well, my goal was to call attention to how fortunate we are in our country to have people like Chris and Johnny serve. And my goal is to remind people that a couple of things. One, our vets need help in transitioning from the military to the private sector, and in so doing, we will have produced a group of leaders for the future. My goal is to remind people that the vets want no self-pity. You know, like, oh man, I feel sorry for you, Turner. And my goal is to remind people that that our military is awesome, and that we ought to support our military and their families all the time. And so, and my goal was to, you know, stay occupied.
You've done a bunch of book signings now around the country. You had a big media tour. Some of your favorite shows, like Jimmy Kimmel, which you never miss, and the
First time I ever saw Jimmy Kimmel's show.
What was that like, and what kind of feedback did you get as you?
Well, it was good. You know, I went on the Today Show. I was interviewed by my daughter Jenna, our daughter Jenna. So it wasn't a real hard-hitting interview, but it was good. Yeah, Sully, thanks for the slow ball. Ellen DeGeneres, just like that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So let's get kind of to the main event here with the stories of these incredible warriors. So Chris, why don't you, Major Chris Turner, still on active duty. Chris, why don't you take us through your story? What happened to you, and then kind of what happened next?
Okay. First of all, Mr. President, thank you for having me here. This is surreal. So 2013, I was in Afghanistan. I was on our base, and I was walking around with a couple of my soldiers. And we start walking, and all of a sudden, an Afghan security guard starts running towards us from another location, another direction. And he gets to, he's running, then he slows down a little bit, and we get out of our vehicle. And right before we get out of our vehicle, I thought to myself, something strange is going on, because I knew they weren't supposed to be anywhere unescorted. So at the last second, I told my guys to chamber around in our pistols. And then we started walking towards him with our pistols on our hip. I get to about 30 or 40 feet from him. He continues to close his distance. He's running, and I can tell he's very nervous. He gets about 25, 30 feet from me and stops. And I got my 2 guys are on either side of me, and we tell him to lower his weapon. And in a split second, he raised his weapon right at me, and he has a misfire. Long story short, to get to this, the threat was eliminated eventually, and I was wounded in the leg. So it was not a traumatic wound to where I had to be evacuated from Afghanistan. So I remained there. I got patched up, and I stayed in Afghanistan for another 6, 7 months. So at the time, right after it happened, I was really struggling with reliving that moment over and over and over again. Very nervous walking around the base more than I was before that happened, and couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, had trouble kind of focusing for the first few days, and knew something was wrong. But at the time, I just kind of put it in the back of my mind and just continued to try and move forward, but it was tough. And then it wasn't until after I got back from Afghanistan that I started to slowly think about seeking help. But it wasn't really until the Warrior Open, and I think we got a question about that later that we can talk about. But it wasn't until after the Warrior Open that I really had a moment where I knew I knew telling my story was the way forward to getting better and to finding the right venue and avenue to get better.
What was it about the Warrior Open in that moment that made it safe for you to tell your story for the first time?
Him telling me to get up and tell my story, basically. You can't say no to him.
You can't, that's for sure. And the other thing about, the other thing about your story was that you by staying in Afghanistan, your transition story was, the stigma is different than it would be a guy looking for a job in the private sector.
Yeah, so in my mind, there is a stigma associated with seeking help. I was afraid to go seek help. I told lies about where I was going. I would go in civilian clothes when I got back from Afghanistan to see behavioral health because I was afraid of being judged. I was afraid that others would think I'm weaker. But it really was that pivotal moment at the Warrior Open where Mr. President asked me to stand up and tell my story. And the feedback I received from other participants and other folks there, that really made me realize that the way forward is to talk about it. The way forward is to tell my story. And every time I tell my story, I feel a sense of relief. That night I felt like 1,000 pounds were taken off my shoulder. And then I told it a few times after that, and each time it got better and better. And now I can tell it, no problem.
Yeah, now you talk to your men,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And ask them to share their stories.
Absolutely. I try and encourage them that there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong at all with seeking help. And it takes others to stand up and progress that message that there's no judgment, there's no retribution, there's no stigma with seeking it, and it is getting better. The military is definitely getting better on that front.
And what was at risk, that you were afraid of? Security clearances are in play. Your career could have been on the line as an active duty guy if people knew that you were seeking help. Is it?
All of the above. I was really concerned with just the way that either those senior to me in rank and then those subordinate to me in rank would perceive me seeking help. Again, it was fear of being seen as weak or incapable of doing my job.
Now, you recently went to an Air Force resiliency school.
Well, it was Air Force Command and Staff College, and I was asked 2 or 3 weeks after I got back from the Warrior Open, when they found out why I was there, they asked me to speak, and I got up in front of about 550, 600 people, and told my story, and again, just like when I stood up at the Warrior Open and told it, it was that immediate sense of relief. People again came up and thanked me for telling my story. And it was really those two big moments of talking to large groups that kind of rid me of the fear of the stigma of seeking help. That I really felt that I may have helped somebody in that audience, and that's my ultimate goal.
And what do you tell people who come to you and say, I'm not going to do it, I can't do it, I don't want to tell my story, be honest about what I'm feeling?
I tell them my story. I tell them my story, and I've actually done that twice in the last couple of months, sitting in a Humvee with another guy, and telling them my story. It may or may not have helped. I hope it did. I think it did. But they definitely appreciated me telling my story to them. So hopefully it helps.
And Chris wrote you a letter, I believe, Mr. President.
Yeah, well, so I painted him twice. The first time I was sitting next to him at dinner. And I just sensed this anxiety, and so my first painting of Turner was pretty dark.
And we'll look at it in a little bit. We'll go through the portraits, and you can.
Am I getting ahead of it?
You're getting a little ahead, sorry.
Well, you asked about the letters. Had I known that they were going to get put in the case over there, I would have done a few more.
They are in the exhibit.
Yeah, hey, listen, damn good letter. If you didn't want me to talk about the paintings, you shouldn't have asked me about the letter, because the letter inspired the second painting.
Go ahead, Mr. President.
Well, I just, sorry to interrupt, but I just remember there was a tangible thing that you had to let go of that you lost, or you thought you lost.
Yeah.
Remember, there's something you held on to, and you used that as something that you focused on, and that caused you to think about your injury and what happened. and you lost it.
Yeah, you talking about the bullet?
Yes.
Yeah, so after I got wounded, I was standing in front of a vehicle, a truck, and one of my soldiers who was with me that day, he pulled the slug out of the back of the truck, or out of the radiator of the vehicle, and gave it to me. And at the time, I thought, hey, this is really cool. So I had some guys make a little case for it, and I held on to it, took it everywhere I went, kept it in my golf bag, and then I lost it. And I'm kind of glad I did, because now I don't have that thing that I'll come across in my golf bag when I'm looking for tees, or it's gone, and I'm okay with that. So.
Good deal. Okay, so now to get into Johnny's story, we're going to start with a video that was recorded at the Warrior Open a few years ago.
They don't want me to talk.
I'm a combat controller, United States Air Force, and our job is to deploy outside the wire with United States Special Forces, ODAs. It's our job to maintain constant communication with friendly aircraft, to provide amplified guidance, to deconflict friendlies from enemies, and any hazards to flight for friendly forces. On my second deployment in 2011, I was in a mounted patrol, and I was in the second vehicle, and as a combat controller, we stand up in the back of the vehicle. We have all of our equipment, our radios and GPS and all these things that need to stay updated, have line of sight with satellites. And so I was standing up in the back of a up-armored MATV, and our vehicle hit an IED, and being the person standing in the back, I just sustained a heavy blow to both of my feet and ankles, and sustained pretty serious injuries to both legs, and was able to remain conscious throughout the entire ordeal. So I had to do a lot of assisting with my medical care on site. So I actually had 3 tourniquets on my legs to stop the bleeding, and I put on 2 of them, and had to continue to do my job to control the aircraft, to come in and provide medevac for both me and the other service member that were wounded. I think it's important before you decide to join the military, before you make that leap, before you sign the dotted line, to have something in your mind that is worth fighting for. There's something that's bigger than yourself, something that's going to get you up out of bed every day and continue to push you forward. For me, that was always my family. Anytime, like in training, our training is 3 years long and it's a pretty grueling process, but for me it was always my family that kept me going and motivated. And since my injury, it's been the same. It's been my friends and family and my relationship with my Lord and Savior that have kept me sustained and kept me motivated. And like I said, being here at the Warrior Open and being around other wounded warriors who have sustained even worse injuries than me that are able to still come out here and swing a club is pretty remarkable.
Very cool. Have you noticed something, Sully? He's grown him a little facial hair since then. Yeah.
I did. Yeah, it's interesting watching that. I feel like I'm looking at a little boy there. I'm like, quit rambling on. Get to the point. I'm glad you chopped it up a little bit and made it look like I was doing a better job back then, but I was definitely nervous. That was my first experience here at the Warrior Open. I knew you were going to be watching. That was the most incredible thing. I know we're here to talk about the book, but what started this is whenever we all we fill out an application and we submit it to the Bush organization, and then we find out that we've been accepted. That is just the most incredibly humbling thing that's ever happened in my life. For you to invest your time and your resources into building us up and lifting us up and elevating us to a position where we could better impact other people and other veterans that are in similar circumstances is just incredibly remarkable. So I thank you for that, sir.
Now, your story is a little bit different, Johnny. You did not have a PTSD.
But I'm going to cut you off because
Okay.
I talked about on that video my family, and my mom is in the audience tonight. She's a 20-year Air Force veteran herself, so I want to say hello to my mom.
Johnny, that's a damn smart move. Yeah. Give Mom a shout out. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, so walk us through your journey. What's happened since then?
Since the first Warrior Open?
Right.
Well,
Well, first of all, do you have post-traumatic stress?
I was not diagnosed with a TBI or post-traumatic stress, but I definitely know that there are things that are different about myself, and I don't know if I can attribute that to the blast itself or to the fact that, as the video talked about, or as my intro talked about, I've had 31 surgeries to date. I was an inpatient in the hospital at BAMC for 3 months, and then I was down at the Center for the Intrepid for the next 2 years. And so I was on a lot of Dilaudid and methadone, a lot of narcotics, a lot of antibiotics. I had a lot of bone infections, so I had radioactive treatment. So I think that there were an awful lot of chemicals that were running around in my body, and a lot of the Team 43 guys can attest to that phase of your life. You're kind of in a fog. You're definitely not yourself, and you're praying every night that you come out of this fog. And I like to think that I did. I look back at those pictures and I can see somebody else. It doesn't look like me. There are things about myself that I notice are different. I have to write notes, I have to write things down. I used to be an incredible multitasker. To be a combat controller, you have to be able to multitask. And now I have to slow down, I have to take notes.
Hey, I can barely remember your name, Johnny.
It's written right here.
Yeah. Tell me about, so this is special surgery, right?
Yes, sir. So a lot of there are a lot of amputations. War provides a great motivator, obviously, to figure out new ways of doing things when it comes to medical care. So amputation was the name of the game for all of the IED blasts that were happening all over Afghanistan and Iraq. And my orthopedic, or my orthotic, the word is escaping me right now.
It's okay.
But yeah, I didn't write it. I should have written it down on a note. But
Your doctor.
And my doc, he invented the IDEO brace. So, and they came up with a procedure of limb salvage. So trying everything they could to make the best of a horrible situation work out for the long runs. Because if you can avoid amputation, it should be better off in the long run. So I've had 31 surgeries to effectively effectively replace a K with a G. I'll get there. So I don't have ankles anymore, I have 2 angles, because my ankles are fused at a 90-degree angle. So my feet will never move again, but I wear carbon fiber custom braces for the rest of my life that allow me to walk and do everything that I still do
Play
today.
golf?
Play golf, skydive. So.
Damn good golfer.
Yes, sir.
And
When he's watching.
Yeah. And so Danny Casera went through the same thing, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
at the Bush Institute, the Military Service Initiative does work in both warrior wellness, like the PTS and TBIs, but also in employment as part of the veteran transition, which is really the #1 issue for most veterans in the transition. You worked as a recruiter for a year, and you've talked about how veterans don't market themselves well enough. And when you look at you hear that story and the way Johnny's training kicked in and he finished the job despite being in such a horrible accident, and you think of the discipline, the loyalty, the teamwork, the training, who wouldn't want to hire someone with those skills and with that character, right?
That's exactly right. You would think that. We look. So one of the ways that being a part of this event changed my life is I got to work for a couple of veteran nonprofits, and one of them was called Dark Horse Benefits, and I got to be a recruiter for veterans transitioning out of the military, and we were working alongside corporate America trying to build a funnel for them to effectively get solid employment, making a good wage. And I thought it was going to be the most rewarding job, because I thought it was going to be so easy to sell these incredible warriors that have done so much. I say that the best thing about a veteran is that we are incredibly malleable, right? You can take us and put us anywhere. If we feel like we are contributing, we're giving back to our communities, we're supporting other people, if we have that passion in our job, we can do anything. We'll get the job done, and probably better than anybody else. So I thought it was going to be an easy job. But I found, and I think a lot of businesses have found, that it doesn't always happen like that. you do all you can to try to build a good resume, you know, brief the veteran on exactly what they can expect when they go into the interview process. But whenever they get there, it seems like there is still a barrier. They have questions of, well, he seemed a little rough on the edges. He said this in the interview, and he just doesn't have the experience that we're looking for. And that just consistently just blew my mind, that we were still trying to fight and try to break through this glass ceiling. And I think that the work that the Bush Center is doing with vetroadmap.org, programs that you guys have invested and poured so much money and talent and time into, are going to effectively bust through that glass ceiling for so many veterans. So I just appreciate the work that everyone's
Yeah, you know,
doing here.
it's got to be frustrating. On the other hand, there's companies like La Quinta. The reason I bring them out, they're one of the sponsors. Anyway, that, by the way, provided rooms for every one of the vets. But they've got an active employment program, and they're really good at it. And so while there's a lot of frustration, there's also some great examples of companies that bend over backwards to hire the vets. You just went to the wrong companies.
Well, and Mr. President, you said there's no want ads for snipers, so they do need to learn how to translate the skills.
Like your skill set probably doesn't translate to like being a Walmart warehouse man, you know?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we'll segue to the portraits.
Oh, yeah. Well,
And-
Chris wrote me this letter.
So let's go to Chris's before and after. There you go.
So the first one was pretty dark, as you can see, and I was thinking about him when I was painting him because he's fresh in my mind because we'd had dinner together. I was sitting next to Chris and his dad.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And, you know, I didn't know that the speech meant that much to him until he wrote me a letter. And he started talking about how he is changing as a result of dealing with the stigma. And so I got to thinking about Chris. He wrote a couple of letters, and got to thinking about him. And so at the very end of the painting experience, I decided I'd paint another Turner. So Turner changed, and I changed. Turner changed, his outlook changed a lot. And I changed as an artist. And so I wanted to show that transition for both of us. So we both went together. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's kind of looks like you. I mean, you didn't have any hair. Yeah. It's actually the same exact thing, except when I cut off your neck, it squashes your head on the first one.
The smile's different. You can tell there's.
Yeah, tell him what you said about the smile.
So in the darker one, the first one, it seems like a fake smile. It almost seems like I'm kind of bottling a lot of stuff up. And then the one on the right, it's absolutely I'm absolutely relaxed, at ease, like the huge weight that was taken off my shoulders. But I absolutely love the one on the right better.
You should.
That's why I asked you today which one you liked better. So
Yeah, you. I like you on the right.
And where were you when you first saw this?
So when I first saw the one on the left, it was on an Instagram post. It was a picture of his room. But then I was in the field training when I got an email that had both of them side by side.
Yeah.
And when the day the book released, I still was out in the field, and I downloaded it on iTunes and listened to it in the back of the Humvee. I listened to all the stories, and then when you got to mine, I was blown away.
Yeah.
I was blown away.
It's an important story in the book because there's a lot of people with stigma, and Chris is on the leading edge of getting other soldiers to talk about it because until we can get a vet to say, I got an issue, it's a hard problem to solve. It's an impossible problem to solve. The second thing we learned, by the way, is when they do talk about it, it's best to talk about it with another vet. So the Team 43 is like a network, but there's a lot of other networks out there. And one of the things we're doing at the Bush Center is highlighting those networks that are effective. I mean, we're really effective here. But, you know, we're talking about 157 men and women. But over time, assume they affect 5, and then there's another 5 on those 5, and all of a sudden you got it. But there's a lot of networks in America doing that. And then the third stool is what works. Where can somebody get help? And that's what we're doing.
What reaction did you get from your family?
My wife right there,
Katrina?
she absolutely likes the one on the right better as well.
Probably likes the person on the right better, too.
Yeah, that is absolutely true.
Okay, so let's take a look at, now Johnny is part of the mural. So there's the big look at it. And now we have a close-up of Johnny.
Yeah, movie star handsome.
What'd you say?
No, not pudgy. Movie star handsome, I said.
Okay.
You'll take that, won't you?
Yeah, I'll take it. I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of projected that goatee you were going to eventually grow.
That's my pre-pubescent picture right there.
Yeah. There you go.
So when you look at it now, it's been a while, obviously, since you painted it. What do you think about?
The painting?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It conveyed a sense of what I was trying to say. Johnny's an upbeat guy. He's got a lot of energy. He's an optimistic person, and been through a lot, but that didn't slow him down as somebody who, is anxious to live life to the fullest. That's what I was trying to capture. Kind of real optimistic look. Got those blue eyes.
You got the eyes.
Yeah. That's the important thing, is to get the eyes.
It is.
Let me see those eyes.
You also got my hairline going a little bit far back.
And where were you, Johnny, when you first saw it?
I was at home, and he was doing a world tour the week before the book came out. So I was always Googling it to see where he was next, and I saw the mural portion in the background of, I think, the USA Today show, and I could only see the top right quadrant of my face, and then I could see Justin Constantine.
That's the best part. Yeah.
That's my best. That's my best.
By the way, on the mural, I chose not to have specific uniforms for a certain service, because the thing about these men up here, and men and women who all volunteer, they're all part of something greater than a specific part of our military. They're part of this great force for good, and that's what I was trying to convey. Except for Herring and DeWitt, Osborne, they've got their dress uniforms on. I didn't think you looked so good in a dress uniform, so I left you off. But yeah, that's an important part. It speaks to, America. It's really, it shows the faces of America.
That's exactly right. Whenever we're in combat, we're not worried about the uniform that the guy is wearing next to us, just the outcome, and that we're united in a common goal. But I saw it, and I could see the top corner, and I knew, I guess, by the complexion and the glisten in my eye there, that was me. And I knew it was Justin Constantine, and I sent him an email immediately. I said, obviously, he chose the best-looking guys for this. So.
Yeah, that's right, Constantine.
It's true. Now, Mr. President, as part of the media response to this, the art critics were like this book and your work quite a bit.
So?
Not exactly your, but not exactly your crowd.
Yeah, it wasn't my base of support, Sully.
So today was a great day out at the Warrior Open. We need to give a shout out to the winning team. Now this year was alumni, all the alumni invited back. It was a scramble format, so not quite the competition that you guys really crave and love, but we do have to recognize the winning team. David Hodges, John Falkenberg, Billy Paul, those are 3 Team 43 members. And then Vince Tobin from Bell Helicopter, and a pro, Drew Evans, was the winning team.
That's nice. Yeah, let's hear it for them.
And there they are.
What'd they win?
They won a
free lunch.
Free lunch at Cafe 43.
By the way, I don't know if the people here know this, but Club Corp was we play on Club Corp courses, and Club Corp has given every player a free membership to any club in America, plus a free guest pass to any club in America.
Now our phones are going to be blowing up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's great.
For life.
Now,
Yeah, for life. Yeah, for life.
for life. We heard Ken talk about the new arrangement with the Salesmanship Club and the AT&T Byron Nelson starting next year going forward. That's a pretty big deal.
It's a huge deal. Yeah.
And that's going to help the Warrior Open grow and become even bigger and better and have even greater impact.
Yeah, so here's the thing. The question is, how do you take what we're doing and, try to leverage it? Because we're doing great stuff, but how do we affect more and more people? That's the challenge we have here at the Bush Center. We got a good strategy, but how can we get that strategy to reach farther and farther away from Dallas? And one way to do it is to team up with the Nelson, because it gives us a chance to talk about, it gives me a chance, for example, to talk about on national TV what we're doing. It gives our vets a chance to, spread out more. And so it's a great leap forward. It really is.
Now, there was a lot of good golf out there today, but that wasn't the only action that we had out at Prestonwood Country Club today.
That's Adams.
Scott Adams.
It's a famous tradition. We have Adams and I on the belly bump. He got a good belly to bump.
And
So Adams got about, I don't know, I'm going to say 60% of his body burned. And he's an awesome guy, Minnesota.
now Johnny didn't play as well as he would have liked to. Is that fair to say today, Johnny? And his preparation this year was a little bit different than what he normally does. And take a look at this photo. On Saturday, Johnny upheld a tradition by going to Haleyville, Alabama, to walk in the memorial walk for his best friend, Mark Forster, who was killed 6 months before Johnny was injured. And the tradition is that they walked the number of miles that would have been Mark's birthday. This year would have been 36. They had lightning and got cut off at 31. But on Saturday, and you heard him talk about the braces he's going to wear for the rest of his life. He walked 31 miles on Saturday in Haleyville, Alabama, to honor the memory of his best friend. Very cool. So that's pretty cool. And you can see the smile on his face.
I'm looking forward to his 80th birthday.
Yeah. You were talking about scaling the Warrior Open. We're trying to work on our scalability of that ruck march because, 80 years is going to be rough. I'm actually walking next to Brent Sibley. That's Forrest Sibley's father. I'm wearing a bracelet with 4 names on there. 3 of the 4 names were actually green on blue incidents like what happened to Chris.
Yeah.
So Brent Sibley, Forrest Sibley was killed August 26, 2015.
Now, Chris, your former commander-in-chief has a reputation when it comes to the golf course of being the heckler-in-chief.
Heckler-in-chief, that's exactly right.
Did you hear some of that out there?
I was actually disappointed. I was not heckled once today. It was great. But in 2015, that's a different story.
All part of the relationship with the troops. So we have 1 or 2 questions from the audience. There were a number of people that asked how your mom or dad.
Great, thank you for asking. They're both in Maine, which is good.
Right. And we had another person asked what you're going to paint next.
Winston Churchill. So the reason I started painting in the first place is because I had read an essay by Winston Churchill called Painting as a Pastime. And I basically said, if that old guy can paint, I can paint. And so hired Gail, thanks to Pam. And so I decided to paint a painting of Winnie. So it's a 5-foot by 4-foot canvas. It's a big canvas, and that's what I'm painting.
Well, to close
also
out,
painted Freddie, our dog.
Yeah. Right. To close out, we're going to give each of our panelists a chance to leave you with one thought, what's most important to them that you take away from tonight. So Chris, take it away.
So for me, looking back on my experiences and the way I dealt with it, in a not so healthy manner. The one thing I would look for is, and I hope someone out there, whether it's Facebook Live or wherever, if they're struggling and they don't think it's okay to talk, or if they're afraid to talk about it because they think they're going to be judged, that's absolutely the wrong answer. Open up, tell your story, whether it's one-on-one with the therapist, whether it's you and your spouse, whether it's you and your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. It's to really open up and tell the story, and then that'll continue to progress more and more to telling it more often, which makes it easier to deal with. That'd be it.
Great.
And so I would usually say the exact same thing. That's been an incredible testimony in my life, has been sharing my story. I do so as often as possible, and I can agree and confirm with that, what Chris went through in the moment that he chose to do it in your presence was incredible. I've done it for the last 6 years in very small doses, and it's been an awesome way for me to transition. So I'll talk to the other point that I like to make, which is just continually building your own network, continually looking outside yourself and to the people that you choose to surround yourself with, your family, your friends. Those are the people that are going to be there to support you when and if you should fall. Our mechanisms of injury were very severe and unique, but any one of us could be put in a similar situation, could be in the hospital, could be undergoing a trauma in their life, such as we did, and be forced to deal with a TBI or traumatic injury or post-traumatic stress. But if you've invested your life into helping out others, others will be there to support you whenever you fall.
Good boy.
Yeah.
Really good.
Mr. President, you have the final word.
Yeah, paint.
And go to Amazon.com and buy Portraits of Courage.
There you go.
Or in the store after the program tonight. So thank you really sincerely to Johnny Yellock, Major Chris Turner, President Bush. And we've got hold on. Now, Colonel Howe will wrap us up.
Okay. Hope he makes it quick. Yes, he will.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Johnny and Chris. And thank you, Sully, for keeping us on point. And you dodged most of the arrows this evening. But thanks to all of you for being here tonight and for your support to this incredible project and this meaningful work. And what you see around you tonight are the faces of many of the men and women from Team 43, part of our military service initiative, men and women that President Bush and Mrs. Bush have come to know through our Warrior Open Golf Tournament and W100 bike ride. And so the Military Service Initiative is committed to fostering a successful transition and reintegration from military service into civilian life, but also to bringing the civilian and military populations closer together, to bridging that divide so that our communities can better support our veterans with their transition, but so then they can also take advantage and leverage veteran leadership in those same communities. From our research, we know that 71% of Americans say they do not know or understand the issues that veterans face. And our veterans agree with 84% saying that the civilian population does not know and understand the issues that they face. For many of our veterans, the transition process will be extremely smooth, but as we heard tonight, some will face challenges with finding new and meaningful employment, and still others are adjusting to life with the wounds of war, both visible and invisible. And so by sharing the stories of these courageous and resilient veterans that President and Mrs. Bush have come to know, and by bringing their stories to life with these paintings, we hope that people will better understand the issues that warriors face during that transition, issues such as employment and the invisible wounds of war. And so now I know many of you are wondering, how can I help? And the simple answer is that by simply being here today, you are already helping. You have demonstrated a willingness to learn more about our nation's veterans. But knowing you want to know a few concrete more ways to help. The first is to know, understand, and connect to vets by changing the way you think about the invisible wounds of war. You heard tonight from the medical community and the warriors who have worked to overcome these wounds. Use this experience to overcome any preconceived notions or stigmas that you may have. As we heard tonight, hire, develop, and retain and support veteran employees and their spouses. They will make your companies better. Take time to understand the issues that veterans are facing within your community. We've developed that set of tools that Johnny and the President and Chris and Sully talked about tonight. You can see them all at bushcenter.org. And if you know a veteran transitioning from military service, please point them to those resources so they can take advantage of that vet roadmap. And finally, learn about and support effective organizations that help veterans, organizations like the Bush Institute. You can support them with your time, your money, and your expertise. And one way that you can certainly do that tonight is to buy a copy of Portraits of Courage. The proceeds from the book come right back to the Bush Institute so we can continue these programs like the Warrior Wellness Alliance. The bookstore will remain open for you tonight until 9 p.m. so you can pick up additional copies for your friends and neighbors who couldn't make it here. For those of you that would like to get a signed copy of the book, you can also purchase a wristband, also in the bookstore and in Freedom Hall, so that you can come back on the 5th of June to Freedom Hall to get that book signed. And then finally, for those of you that pre-ordered books, you can also pick them up in Freedom Hall this evening. Finally, Portraits of Courage will run until October 1st, so please, please, please bring your family and friends. Tell everyone about this incredible exhibit so they too can learn more and support these warriors. Thank you so much for your support, and thanks for being here this evening.